So this video is about how to find your soulmate, and it is in response to a video I did a few years ago called How to Attract a Soulmate. And I would say, based on the comments that have been done to the video, which will be linked somewhere around here, you should watch it, is that most people completely miss the point of the video and have completely kind of unrealistic ideas about really what those concepts even mean. So what I'm going to do in this video is share with you basically three ideas, clarify what I am defining this term as, and then how we can actually do it, and then thirdly to realize how it's kind of an illusion and a myth that we can actually do it. And if we could actually do it, then it would actually ruin it, and it really wouldn't be the thing that we want it to be. So the first thing is, what am I defining this term as? Well, how most people are approaching it is this romantic, mythical idea that you are this one independent, separate person, and then there's this other independent, separate person, and you're just magically weaving your lifetimes together, and you are just so perfectly matched and complemented for each other that it is just, you have to meet that one person, and then you meet that one person, it's like everything's perfect and they just complete you and everything's fine, just like all the romantic comedies and movies and TV shows and books tell us it's gonna be. And maybe that really happens in real life. Maybe some people have had that experience. Personally, I haven't, and personally I don't believe that it's actually how things work or how things really happen, because it seems most likely, based on experience and reflection, that we're here as humans to grow and to discover ourselves and to learn more about who we really are and discover those things and perhaps support other people in the same journey and allow that for them as well. So if that's how we're defining it and that's how we're understanding, perhaps that changes how we look at it. So then that leads us to the question that maybe we could have lots of different soulmates, in that we could have relationships or encounters with people of pretty much any length of time that could be what we might call magical. So if we wanted to define it, we could say a soulmate is really any type of connection or person that creates a magical transformation in our life. So what do we mean by that? Well, magical, we mean transformative, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all across the board, meaning it transforms your whole being. And I don't mean change, I mean literally transform, meaning trans, to rise above, and then form, present form. So that would be basically how are we defining it. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship. It could be an author, it could be a book, it could be a movie, it could be a song, it could be a person you meet at a place or you sit next to on a plane, or you date for 10 years or 5 years or 10 months or 15 minutes. It could be a whole lot of different things, but if it has this powerful, expansive, transformative effect, then that's probably how we're defining it. Which leads us to the point number two, which is, well, how do we do it? Well, if there were a way to do it, what makes the most sense is that if we are showing up inauthentically, we're not honest with ourselves, we don't even care about that, we are just basically living in our ideas about ourselves and or our socially constructed persona, and we've never gone anywhere deeper than that, then it's likely that what we are going to attract, what we're going to be attracted to, how are we going to see the world, how we relate to ourselves, and how we communicate, all of those things are going to be coming out of that way in which we see ourselves. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to be that rewarding or profound or transformative and or magical. That's just obvious, that's just common sense. So then if we took the corollary of that and said, well, if we are actually interested in, transforming and growing and living sort of a magical, interesting, awe-inspiring, passion-filled life, then that might require a higher degree of honesty and authenticity and truthfulness and courage and willingness to be who we are, regardless of what other people might say, think, or do. So perhaps that could be the way, because if that's more of authentically who we are, then it would follow that we would be more likely to attract people and situations and events that are more authentic and in alignment with that. And we can make it metaphysical, we can make it, esoteric, or just basic common sense of understanding how psychology works, how our perception works, how our way of seeing things works, and how that can open and or close doors for us. So, some people say basically being prepared and dedicating yourself to something creates luck and creates opportunities for you. Is that magical? Yes and no, but if we're not being dedicated and we're not putting in the time, the energy, and the work, then it's highly likely that if we get the opportunities, we won't see them, we won't recognize them, and we won't really be able to show up for them, or we might, and then it'll just be a whole other situation. So that leads us to point number 2, and hopefully that answers that question. The third point is that how can we really do it? Well, that whole mindset kind of negates the thing that we want. It's kind of like saying, I want to have a spiritually transcendental experience. Well, by definition, you can't really make that happen, because how can your idea and your limited version of yourself create this thing which contradicts and negates everything about yourself? It's like, how can you lift yourself up by your own bootstraps? It's kind of like saying, well, if we could just figure out, how to be the next Jimi Hendrix or Beethoven, or how to be, a great creative genius, we could formulate it, we could teach it in school. But if we did that, we would pretty much negate the whole thing of what it is. Meaning, part of what makes it interesting and attractive and magical is that it's unconscious. We don't know how it works necessarily. We can't really control it. And if we could, it would cease to be the thing that it is, and we probably wouldn't be that interested in it anymore, because of the basic psychological fact that we're kind of like a fish in water in that how our psychology works. Whereas, when things become too repetitive or too familiar, our brain sort of stops noticing it and kind of shuts it off. Just like all the things you don't notice in the room about you right now, all around you right now, on the way in which you go to work every day, on places and things you go to all the time, there's so much you don't notice because your brain just shuts off because, I've been here before, it's all the same. So that meaning, maybe there isn't really an independent, separate us that can make something happen. And maybe our ideas of ourselves and the world is actually causing a lot of the problem in the first place, and keeping us from the actual opportunities that might be in front of us in the here and now. Likewise, if we could contrive and control these things, it would probably cease to be less interesting to us, because it would basically just start to become yet another monotonous thing that we can control, another just sort of monotonous thing that we have to be responsible for. Which in actuality, what we really want, what we really get turned on by, is the other. We're so consumed in self, the other, or the unconscious, or the magical, or the transformative, or whatever, however you want to describe it. That's kind of what gets our attention. So if we could control that and figure it out, probably wouldn't be that interested in it anymore. So I know that kind of negates everything that I've just said, but I think it's a little bit closer to reality, because maybe we don't know what the real reality is. Maybe there is no separate independent I that can make something happen, and a separate object from the subject, a separate subject from the object, that's sort of in the world, but that's kind of a philosophical discussion outside the context of this video. And or maybe we're not really even in control. Maybe these things that we're trying to demand of reality when we're trying to put the gun to God's head, maybe these things are just gifts that show up in and of themselves when the time is right. So we have to come back to the question of, well, where is our sphere of control? How are we maintaining our own psychic, psychological, emotional, spiritual health and boundaries? How are we maintaining that thing? And then can see where that goes. So hopefully in this long-winded, sort of swerving explanation, it's given you not a direct answer, but a more expanded way of looking at it in a different ecosystem, mentally and psychologically and spiritually, to approach this thing, so that perhaps you see yourself in the world and other people in a bigger, happier, more harmonious way. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. If you like it, share it, post a comment below, subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you soon.